Floor is yours, Toby.
Cool. Thank you very much. I never got introduced as an inventor. I think that's actually way cooler than any other title I had before. So maybe I should change my LinkedIn. Well, good. Okay, so I'm not alone. So I'm with Vic here. But before we go into a Q&A session with John Lewis, I wanted to frame the conversation a little bit. And for those of you that might not have been in touch with what post-purchase experience actually is and why it matters, we wanted to give a quick introduction of why we think it does. So we do work with many of the leading brands in e-commerce already, and we see that they have understood that there is a neglected strategy for strong growth and efficient business operations that is very, very often, as I said, neglected. Because if you want to grow in an efficient way, you have to excel in these categories. Yeah? You have to win against competition. And you don't necessarily want to win only on price or on product, which is very hard very often to do. So that leaves experience as one lever to win against competition in the market. When it comes to cost, you cannot have any unnecessary cost in your business, right? As a retailer, the margins are low, so anything that is not value adding, you want to get rid of. And the likes of customers asking where their order is obviously not a very value driving one, so this is just an example of what you want to avoid. Returns are not going to go away. They are part of the overall experience. And we want to create some awareness around the potential that still sits in managing returns properly, as in to recover more of the potential lost revenue, as well as creating new future revenue opportunities with the right way of doing returns. Reputation, absolute key. Customer acquisition is expensive already. If people talk bad about you, it gets even more expensive, and that's not a good thing. So you want to make sure that's good. And last but not least, retention, where we know that the benchmark numbers, the averages out there are usually that every customer has to come back at least 2 or 3 times just to pay back the money you invested to finding that customer in the first place. So if you want to run a efficient and sustainable business, obviously you want to make sure that you do bring those customers back. Now, what we still see today is that many, many retailers check out at checkout. Right? What we mean by this is that they are so optimized for the acquisition funnel, as in like, where do I find my customers? How do I push them through my conversion engine to make them transact? But then everything that happens after the transaction, after they have made a purchase, is more or less an afterthought. And this is why we're here to lobby a little bit for post-purchase experience and for retailers to close what we would call the loyalty loop, which means that we want to urge people to take control and ownership of taking care of their customers post-purchase, to not letting them go away or to not defining what that ideally unique and differentiated experience actually is. And this requires a bit of a different mindset. So very often when we talk about customer journeys, they're drawn as a line. So they have a starting point, they have an end point. And the end point is very often the transaction, the purchase. It's the end goal. But it should rather be a circle, right? So ideally, the customer you once acquired, ideally you should never let them go. And ideally, you should do everything possible to bring those customers back over and over again. And when you do that really well, then post-purchase becomes pre-purchase, and you're creating a business motion that becomes very, very efficient. Now, let's get real. Let's talk about what that actually looks like in the real world, and some examples how John Lewis has implemented some of this. And I'm very excited to have Vic with me on stage. And I know everybody's here not for me, but for her. But she has said yes to join the stage with us to talk a bit about her own journey in this domain and what John Lewis has actually started and implemented to get this done. Vic, before we get into it, do you want to say a couple of words about yourself, what your role is, what you do at John Lewis, and why you care about post-purchase experiences?
Yeah, of course. I don't know how much everyone knows about John Lewis. We are a small retailer in the UK, but we are one of the UK's most trusted retailers. We've been going for over 160 years, and we have over 70 partners with a sales turnover of about 12.8 billion 2024. So we're a great little powerhouse, delivering through our 36 shops across the UK, but also through our johnlewis.com platform, which takes about 60% of our sales. I lead our development within the customer fulfillment space, and we've had a particular focus recently around the kind of post-purchase customer experience, which is where our relationship with parcelLab has really blossomed.
Okay. Cool. Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
Oh no, that's fine.
So, from your perspective, what is post-purchase experience, and why does it really matter? And what made you start looking into this domain at all? Because there was a time where you didn't do anything in that space.
Yeah, I think we saw really focused energy around this piece post-COVID. So the carriers kudos to the carriers, were developing their own apps, some of the capability around customer comms and tracking, and we were really kind of harnessing that and leaning into that. But we are we ship product from multiple DCs, so we have 6 or 7 distribution centres, and we have a very wide and deep product assortment. So you quite quickly end up with a fragmented customer journey down to fulfillment site or product. And as a customer, that doesn't feel right, and that doesn't drive a strong customer experience. So what we wanted to do was a sort of nod to the complexity of supply chain, but make the customer completely blind to that. So standardize the customer experience, but also leverage that really crucial customer touch point. So I think we know that there's a potential touch point there within every customer delivery of, say, 4 touch points. And we were missing that. We weren't optimizing that, or we were handing that out to a third party who didn't really care what happened beyond that, or beyond their direct relationship with the customer. So it's also become a really key revenue driver for us. So yeah, really driving loyalty, brand experience, and also optimizing revenue opportunity.
We did bring a few examples of what your experience looked like today. If you compare this to what you had before, we obviously don't want to say, I don't know, whether it's a DPD or an every, it doesn't look good, but it was different, right? And how many carriers did you use?
I mean, we've got sort of 6 or 7 available to us.
Yeah.
We probably work with 3 or 4 at any one time.
Yeah.
But they, you're very much in the hands of the carrier in terms of content, imagery, tone, and John Lewis in particular has got it's a very strong brand presence that we're very faithful to, and it was difficult to support that within those third-party comms.
Yeah, for sure. If we do look at the examples, we can also see that you started playing around not just with the pure information around an order and shipment, a return, but also started adding content that might be relevant for the respective customers of whoever that is. Can you talk a little bit about why you're doing this and what it's good for?
Yeah, of course. So when we went live with parcelLab initially, we were really pleasantly surprised by the customer interaction with those emails. So great click-through rate and open rate. So we wanted to harness that opportunity. We've got to be careful with marketing permissions, so that still remains a bit of a grey area for us. But where we can, we're now starting to play around with bringing customers back to, or linking customers back to categories that we think they might be interested in. So we're getting way more intelligent about that kind of repeat purchase and sort of leading the customer to what they might want to spend their money on next. I think those kind of links from what we've done so far, which has been pretty basic, are driving something around £1 million extra revenue for us. That was last year, and we're hoping to build on that. So really strong foundations there. I think the other beauty of this is that you can test, so you can play around with your content. It's really agile. So if you see a particular hook working really well for you, you can then build on that. Equally, if something's not working so well, you can roll back and look at other options. So it's a really nice playground.
Yeah. And does that help you to differentiate in the market? Is that something that you feel, or maybe even have measured, that your customers value over maybe a different experience?
It's really early days. I think because of the width of our assortment. So we sell anything from a set of furniture to a button. So it's difficult at this point to, I guess, understand the full scope of opportunity in that space, and how you curate that kind of opportunity to the customer. But we're learning all the time.
So what does great mean for you? What does great look like in your point of view when you think about designing, building post-purchase experiences that do engage?
So great looks like a massive reduction in customers contacting us to say, where's my order in the first place? Equally, the same for returns. So we're looking at that kind of end-to-end journey.
Yeah.
But also driving customers back to our website to go on and to buy. And if they don't buy, at least to have us in the back of their minds if there's a product that they like the look of. So yeah, I think there's huge opportunity there. The other thing that it gives us is a platform to put the customer in charge. So again, we don't want them contacting us necessarily. It's a waste of their time to say, I wasn't in when you tried to deliver 2 times. What do I do next? We can put the customer in the driving seat and interact with these comms to then rebook a delivery or organize a different delivery date. So yeah, it really builds on the ease, convenience, and speed at which customers can get their product, which is ultimately what we want.
Gotcha. So for the audience that, for example, the returns, you would have the same visibility of what is happening with a return as you would have with an outbound shipment, so that people know what's happening when they get their money back.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's usually, as we see it very often, also a main reason for them contacting you and creating friction in the process, which probably doesn't help the experience too much. And then, as you mentioned as well, which I find super interesting, is that also then when things do go wrong, you have things already in place that help your customers somehow sort it out, right? So the friction is less. Obviously, at some point, some shipments are not delivered on time, or there's something happening, and that's the real world. But you have built around these potential use cases a proactive way of dealing with those, so it doesn't necessarily lead into frustrated customers.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, cool.
And I think the area that we're looking at now, I mean, those examples you just cited there were there are tracking events that we can see. The unhappy path, we might call it. It's the ones that we can't see, where we're really starting to leverage some opportunities. So where we don't see an expected event from a carrier, how can we use parcelLab to then fill that void and let the customer know that we're on it? We can see that there's a problem, something unexpected's happened, but we're on it. Don't panic, it's coming. Or if it's not coming, we're going to sort this out for you.
And I remember when we were talking about this, you also started working way more with surveys and trying to get even more voices of the customer to understand better, even when things go wrong, that you can use this data, those insights, to then improve the overall process moving forward, right?
Yeah.
And this is what you embed here in this communication as well. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Any early results of where you think you want to go, or you want to maybe drive improvement?
So we haven't launched that particular. We're just on the cusp of doing that now. But we'll monitor that really closely. It's a really black hole for us at the moment. We know that drives a significant number of our contacts. So yeah, that'll be exciting.
All right, cool. We had one other topic that we wanted to talk about, which is I don't want to say it's unique to you, because quite many retailers have that challenge, but you already said you're shipping from different locations. You're splitting your orders into multiple boxes, which very often can lead to confusion on the customer side if you don't communicate that properly. Can you just walk us through what you are doing here?
Yep. Yeah, of course. So this has been really cool for us. for a long time, we've shipped orders from multiple distribution centres, particularly around really busy times at peak. And previously, before Life with parcelLab, customers would we'd bombard them with spam on where their parcels are, and without any identifying photographs within that. So customers don't really know what's coming or when. What we've done is amalgamate comms for split parcel shipments. So we've ended up with what you see here. So customers are tracking at order level, not at parcel level, and that's what they're interested in because they placed an order. It just, they're not interested in the fact that it's coming potentially from different carriers or from different locations. They're interested in which part of their order is where in the delivery journey. And yeah, so far it's been a huge success. We've seen the number of emails that we send to our customers reduced by 25%. So yeah, all the numbers going in the right direction. Okay,
so less emails, but not less information. So you're still aggregating this up into...
well, arguably more information because with parcelLab, we're now including parcel-specific information, which we weren't doing prior to parcelLab.
Okay, gotcha. Cool. Good. We touched upon the monetization aspect of these touch points. And one number you told me earlier is that like every website visit is worth 30p for you guys. So you are actively trying to bring customers back to your website with this, right? So what I tried to mention before around the loyalty loop, that you're trying to not send them away and they end up in a dead end or somewhere in the nirvana, but actually you do try to continue the engagement. That's working well for you? Or?
Yeah, it works really well. So a lot of our customers are loyal, but they are driven by value and speed.
Of course.
And the market is really competitive. So anything that we can do to drive that kind of loyalty and trust in customers for Jolly's to be their number one shopping destination helps. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. Are there any more unique or edgy use cases you guys have implemented that would be interesting for the audience? I know there's one.
So there's always a potential disaster around the corner.
Of course, yes.
We've all had a carrier network go bust or a power outage at a warehouse. So some of the stuff that we're looking at is faster comms to customers when those kind of situations happen, but before orders are in a kind of a chain of events. So that kind of proactive communication stuff. That's probably the main one for us. But there's all sorts of, we're now using you for returns. We'd like to look at speeding up the returns process, getting money back to the customer sooner. That's another key one for us. Also, we have a great range of delivery options, some of which are more expensive than others. And when, in a very small occasion that those don't go quite right, we're looking at how we can again, flip that into a positive experience, whether that might be through a gift voucher or immediate refund of a delivery charge. Those are also things that we're looking at that we think are quite exciting. I'm sure we won't be the first to do that, but that would be really value enhancing for us. Okay,
so you're using more than one carrier. So what happens if actually one of your parcels ends up on the wrong truck?
Yes. So this
does it happen?
It does happen. Despite all the wonderful automation in the world, it still happens. So we end up with a small number of parcels that end up on the wrong carrier network, and those become ghost parcels. So the carrier that's received it can't scan it because it's totally different tech. That carrier might hang on to it for a few days before it returns it back to us, and the customer's just left hanging. They don't know what's going on. So we're looking at picking up those kind of death moments where there's no traffic, and putting a trigger in place to then contact the customer and say, hey, we know this isn't right, but we're looking into it, and framing a positive message around that as much as we can.
Yeah. So trying to turn the potential negative experience into something more positive, more proactive, where you are there for your customers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And instilling the sense that if something goes wrong, we're going to fix it, and that we'll do that every time.
Yeah, and so it doesn't necessarily then become a full claim that you have to deal with.
Yeah, right, we don't. Yeah.
By the way, we also have a claims product. If you saw the guys from Seven Centers before, yeah, we also do that. But it happens, right?
Yeah.
And at that stage, it's probably too late already, because then the customer is already, they have to go through the process, right? The frustration is there. They have to deal with it. You guys have to deal with it. So the more proactive you can be around it, you cannot avoid the problem to happen, but you can at least prevent this to be turning into something like very bad.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a small number, right? So the carriers that we work with are really good generally. So just
they
putting
usually
that out
are.
there. That's,
They usually are. Yeah, yeah.
So it's a really small number, but those become the hot cases that you need to really babysit through and resolve quickly.
Yeah.
And that again is all about building trust and loyalty and retention.
Gotcha. So this is what you're doing today. What do you have up your sleeves on post-purchase tomorrow? So is there more touch points? Is there other channels you would like to also include? So I guess you're not at 100% yet. What's your next step there?
Yeah, so we're it feels like we've been working together for ages, but in terms of our kind of parcelLab journey, we're still in quite early stages. We'd like to look at using parcelLab for some of our other more complex delivery journeys. So we have a 2-person delivery fleet. So potentially looking at the messaging there. We also are broadening our direct customer model.
Yeah.
So there's opportunity there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the app?
Yes, the app we are also very excited about. So we
Us too.
Yeah. Nice prompt.
Yeah.
I've been talking about messages here. We're predominantly talking about email, and we also sent SMS, but we know the value in an app, and also as an omni-channel retailer, we want to make that shopping experience seamless, whether it's in shop or whether it's online, and we want to merge those two. So if you buy something online, you should be able, or in the shop, you should be able to return that through the kind of digital channels. So I think there's great potential there as well to help us, again, make all those shopping journeys frictionless and standardize that customer experience.
Yeah, makes total sense. I mean, that's the way the industry is going. It's all becoming more unified. It's becoming more seamless, and it shouldn't be any redundancy in those communications either, right? Maybe call out for deliver. If you're sending out a text message and an app push at the same time, that doesn't make any sense, right? So you probably should know like which channel is the better one and which channels are used by your customers, and then pick the right one. And so you're reducing the amount of touch points that are irrelevant, and you're increasing the ones that do make sense. And then the experience of all does get a little bit better, right?
Yeah.
Toby,
yes.
There's also a couple of questions from the audience, if that's okay. So if
absolutely.
We do have an active audience, so thank you for pushing those questions forward. One of the questions is also about these touch points, right? Sort of, hey, you do work with client and you see them dropping out somehow. Question around this is sort of, when do you decide to invest and apply, the really customer-centric approach or solution, so effectively to make that intervention? And how do you bring that back into, for instance, here the category of pillows? How do you bring that client back into their original purchase orientation?
So I think that's straying more into the marketing conversation, which I'm not so close to. But I think that you've got, as a big organisation, you'll have a whole wealth of data there. So I think that's looking at your customer shopping habits. And we've got all that data in there. We can see it in the parcelLab comms, and starting to test some of your hypotheses. I think that's probably the best way you can do it. It's all about testing and learning, and watching how your customer behaves. So some great analytics tools are really helpful.
And there's a follow-on questions also coming from the audience. There's the voice of customer surveys or your whole customer satisfaction surveys, right? Yeah. Is there any particular measures that you really apply, or certain tools that you think are most credible or successful? And it also applies to you, Toby. That question, sort of, hey, what is the recommendation? What's the recommended route in that domain?
So we are pretty proactive actually in asking our customers what they think. So we send surveys to them that are curated around a particular delivery journey. And we look at those results on a really granular basis, on a monthly basis. we know that through parcelLab there is a new survey opportunity as well, where we can again play with particular questions within the survey to test a certain hypothesis or get customer feedback on a particular question. So yeah, there's great scope there as well. We'll have a focus group too.
Yeah. And you, Toby?
Yeah, so I believe that the answer is very often in the data. So whether you get this data, the insights through surveys, or you're actually measuring it in real time, there's so many insights that you can get that you can constantly improve on. Right, so very often when we do start a partnership, we start with something, and then over time the data tells us what's working, what's not, because every customer is different, every brand is different, every region is different, and the technology gives you the ability to not have a one-size-fits-all, but to actually tailor it towards your customers or specific customers' needs based on who they are, what they've bought, what their sentiment is, and all these kind of things that today are possible that haven't been possible before.
Yeah.
And it's all in one place. So before parcelLab, we would have had that data, but very fragmented. Through a dashboard, we can now see it all pulled together and can draw some really sound conclusions to then build on. So that's been a massive upside for us that actually we haven't talked about.
And then testing it, right? So A, B, C, D, E, whatever, testing, constantly testing, see what's working better than others. That just gives you that ability to always move on, always improve.
And there's also another question. Effectively, it says sort of, is parcelLab providing customer communication upon triggers, or are you providing the triggers around the tracking events as well? So effectively, to what level do you sort of really act and engage upon the data that you are being provided, and what do you share with your client?
I think that really depends on your customer journeys, and where your kind of key touch points are. So again, we've played around with those. We've looked at the potential touch points that across all the carriers, and we've pulled out the ones that we as a business really value as a starting point, which is literally about where is the parcel in the network. So I think that's a great starting point. But then also taking feedback from your customer experience teams. So where are the hot points? What are customers telling you they're unhappy about? And in the example we were talking about earlier, where we've got misrouted parcels, that's clearly an area that we need to develop. So we're building a business trigger around that. So I think you can build as many business triggers as you want, but they need to either fix the problem or enhance an already competent journey. But I think that's a very retailer specific question. But there are loads of options out there, and loads of data points that you can leverage.
Okay.
Yeah, if I can just add to this, I think it always comes from the problem. So it's important to understand the problem of what you want to achieve and what your strategy is as a retailer. And then there's such a huge and vast amount of data that is available and trigger points that you can use based on the solution that you want to get to. And I don't think we have the same setup with a retailer twice, right? So everybody's slightly different. Everybody has their nuances and different ways of how they want to engage with the customers. We also have nuances in how the data is being used. So I don't know, maybe the question also is going a little bit into that direction, that on the one hand, you can, for example, only work with the data. So you're just getting the data pushed into your system, and then your system, whether it triggers a workflow or whether it triggers a message, can be set up on your end. We have setups where we're actually sending like logic with data. So it's more of a headless setup where, for example, a retailer has built their own returns portal front end or their own tracking page front end, or they have an app, right? So you just like push into the existing front end. And we have retailers where they just say, hey, we just want it out of the box. And so we do all of it. So also when it comes to integration depth, there's a lot of flexibility depending on how you set up, what kind of systems you have, how you want to use it, and what you want to get out of it.
Okay. And there was also, you mentioned returns as well in this domain. Pretty important. Many things can go wrong in the returns process. So can you tell us a little bit about the journey that you went through, probably with parcelLab, sort of, hey, how got that addressed, how it has moved forward, and are there some real tangible results out from the collaboration?
Yeah, so we're sort of mid-launch of returns at the moment. We've got 2 out of our 3 carriers live. We were starting from a pretty basic place, so we acknowledged a start of a return, and then we acknowledged it being processed in our return centre. What we were missing was the movement of the parcel through the carrier network or whatever chosen route the customer is returning to us. And that was reflected in the customer feedback. All our customers were telling us your returns process is too slow. I want my money back. So again, that's a really hot customer journey. You've got my product, but you've also got my money. We've seen some really great results in that particular CSAT, customer satisfaction number, improving. And we expect that to continue as we roll out our last carrier.
Would you like to add to that, Toby?
No.
No?
That's all good.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then there's you talked about also many of these customer experience events. Yeah, that can become from a negative. They can turn into a positive. You're trying to sort of change the paradigm, as it were. Sort of in terms of, hey, there's a complaint, something going wrong. How do you change that for the better? And how do you see parcelLab playing a role in this? So something goes wrong in the logistics space. And you turn that, it's hard for you to say sort of, hey, we did so much more sales for John Lewis. I can understand that, but how much improvement maybe in cost and efficiency you've generated through your systems.
For John Lewis specifically?
Probably not all the details, but they can come to your stand later.
Yeah. So what we can talk about is we usually see 3 business KPIs that we influence. The first one is customer satisfaction. So you can measure it through NPS, through CSAT. That changes around everything that's order related. So that's usually an immediate peak once we go live, that customers feel less friction, so they are more happy. That's a very, very easy step to be done. The second one is when there's less friction, they usually have less questions. So you have less inquiries, like where's my order, how can I return, I need this, I need that. So if you're proactively pushing out information or giving them the tools to do it on their own, this also reduces the effort that you manually have to do to be reactive on customer things that probably didn't go well, right? So you actually don't want this kind of customer engagement. So you have less inquiries. And then the last one is prerequisite is the other 2, so that customers are happy, right, and that they don't feel any friction. But then you can also create incentives that those customers obviously do come back, and maybe then even come back more often or faster and buy more stuff. So you can measure revenue that increases for those customers that have been, going through a certain journey.
Yeah.
And if I can say one thing, the one KPI that I believe in the most, it's a bit hard to measure, but it's the one where I feel we have the most impact on, is customer lifetime value. So over time, how can you get more out of one customer and the right customers that is beneficial for your business? And this is not just one single transaction, it's the overall life cycle of a customer that you can significantly improve with a good post-purchase experience, because then you're end-to-end and then you can really drive significant value through that.
Would you like to add to that?
I think the only other build I'd make is through the data available, you can see what other retailers operating in the same market are doing and how they're performing. So you might take a nudge from a retailer that's leveraging a particular status that you're not. Equally, you might find that you're sending a disproportionate number of emails against a particular event where another retailer is not. So it gives you a really great balance of what's happening in the market and with your carrier's other customers. So there's a really great benchmarking tool in there, which is really helpful.
Cool. Any questions from the audience? No, not yet. I do have questions for you as well. The sort of so with John Lewis, you're also transitioning, from a little bit super well-known brand into the whole obviously e-commerce space. Now more and more in technology, maybe even further moving in the AI type of thing. How do you sort of balance that also with your team, and how do you balance that with your own knowledge and skill base in there?
Yes, so we are quite. We're still learning in the AI space. I would say within the delivery space, we are very cautious of how we use AI. So we want to build the right capability that we can trust and that our customers can trust. So we're doing quite a lot internally around AI in general and the opportunities it can bring us. But yeah, we're pretty early adopters.
Cool. For you, Toby, to add to that?
Yeah, don't get me started on AI, but we actually were joking about.
Yeah, get started on AI, Toby.
That we don't mention AI in our presentation, what's going on.
Late adopters, not early adopters. Yeah.
So yes, it's obviously a huge thing, and I mean by now I think every technology provider is pushing this into their existing tech stack, right? So because it makes life easier, it takes away a lot of manual work. The big thing for us on the horizon is on the really autonomous agentic side.
Mm-hmm.
So we obviously have the platform, the infrastructure, the data. So how can you start automating this and transferring this into real business outcomes? So you don't necessarily have to have the business users actually decide on what to do when and set up logic and then actually also execute on certain things. Customer experience is most definitely one area where there's a lot of still manual work happening, but also in how you design the experiences and how you deal with claims and everything. So the new AI frontier models, they're giving us the ability to attach these agentic knowledge and intelligence to the existing foundations to get way more out at a lot less effort. Mm-hmm. And this is super interesting. I mean, we've been doing this for about 10 years now, and the amount of innovation that we have reintroduced into the product just over the last few months is just insane.
Yeah.
And it doesn't stop.
No.
So that's it's a pretty cool domain for sure.
Yeah, so you're siphoning out the hype from the real practical
I
uses
think
that you can actually identify.
Obviously, it's a lot of hype, but there's some nuggets that have real business application sense.
Yeah.
Right? And it's probably more on the simpler side today, what can be done, but still there's so many notorious repetitive tasks and things that are very structured. They follow a pattern, which AI can do today already.
Yeah.
And so when you have the right focus on not making it as the biggest hype, but just the real business outcome, then there's a lot of things that can be done with AI today already.
Cool. Yeah, thanks. Then another question for you on the John Lewis. We always know that John Lewis has this huge range of different SKUs, or different type of products, also including the bulky ones, the furniture type of thing. Often that is less data rich. Is there anything that you can sort of talk to us about it? Sort of, hey, is the bulky shipments, do they have a different pattern than the others at this point for this type of information flow?
What do you mean by data? What kind of data?
No, the bulky items. People. There's usually less scanning information, missing pieces of information that you have to sort of fill in, right? Yeah. Effectively. How do you deal with that?
So we might be a bit different. We have our own partner delivery fleet that we operate to deliver two-person products to our customers' homes, and we offer installation services as well. So we have that's quite a strong product for us, and one that we are very proud of. In terms of data, it's our own system. We've built a lot of the infrastructure around that, and as in many areas of our business at the moment, we're going through sort of transformational programs of work, and that is a key area for us to make sure that we've got the right technology around that to support customer needs going forward. So it's definitely an evolving piece, but I wouldn't say it's one that is particularly challenging for us at the moment, but that may be unique to us because we own that delivery model.
Okay.
I can speak to maybe a setup where, like, IKEA is one of our customers. We help them in many countries around the world, and they operate not with their own fleet, but with two-man or freight carriers. And obviously the data that we also get as input is very different. And so it's a challenge for those retailers to create similar, well-defined journeys when the input is not there to some degree. So I think that's an ongoing business challenge. I think that's something where the carriers obviously have to provide relevant information that gives you the ability to then build communication and build experiences around it. If you don't have a superb service on your own that just, I don't know, does everything really well already. Right?
Yeah. Okay. Maybe sort of, if you look a little bit further down the road for the future, we call you an inventor. So what is happening? What do you think is, for parcelLab on the horizon for the next 3 years? Where are you planning to head into?
Yeah. So we believe in, I would say, 2 things. The one thing is that technology needs to become a lot less complicated and more simple, so that even when you operate with big enterprise businesses, it needs to be easy to use software, right? And so we've introduced actually a concept of, we call them experience designers, right? So Vic can just very easily set up the experiences that she wants, right? Even though it might be complicated, even though it might involve different teams that need to be supported to some degree, but we've seen it in the past way too often that things just never get done because it was too hard to just execute. So like one of our focus, it's not as hype as maybe other topics, but it's just to make this available because this creates real business outcome. And the other one is AI. Yeah. So I think half of our roadmap, when you look at it, is AI. We do separate between assistive agent and autonomous agents. So there's some things that help you as a user to do your job faster and better. And there are some things, and I think this is where the biggest development will happen over time, is that more and more autonomy can be given to AI systems that then actually act on their own. And by acting, I mean like triggering business flows, initiating returns, and things like this that today are very tedious processes.
Okay. So you joined them in that journey, I guess, sort of sitting in the backseat a little bit, see what Toby is inventing, right?
Yeah. Oh no, we're always inventing with our customers.
Oh,
that's very fun.
go.
So most of the ideas that we had are not our ideas.
No.
That's very true. So they
Yeah.
they always come from somebody else, and then
They're always someone else's problem.
yeah, and then we're just good at listening and then translating this into technology that others can use as well. So I don't want to take all that praise because that would not be right.
Okay. Well, let's give a big hand to Toby and Victoria about sharing really the insights around the entire journey, working more on the data, I think becoming more sustainable in a way as well. And driving many other factors as well for the customer experience. So thank you for listening. Don't forget to vote, and see you at the next session.
And if you're interested in talking more about this, come to our booth. Vic will also be there for questions. And yes, please, if you like it, vote for us. Thank you very much.
That was the final advertisement. Give them a big hand.
Thank you.